Hello and welcome. Today we want to talk about something that's very top of mind, unfortunately, and that is, how do you respond when you don't get the job?
Yeah, it's really important how you handle the rejections.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
And actually, we're going to talk a little bit more in a further video about the personal side of dealing with rejection. Today, we want to talk about practically, how do you respond? What do you do?
right. Absolutely. So let's talk about the first one that can happen. What happens when you get ghosted?
Yeah, I hate when that happens. It makes me really angry when recruiters and hiring managers do that, because we've all been on the other side of the desk.
Yes.
And whenever I'm talking to hiring managers or recruiters, I say, God, please have some empathy for that poor candidate.
Yeah.
So if you get ghosted, and that can take many forms. First of all, it's really important that when you end the interview, you know what to expect.
Right.
So it's on you to ask the question, what are the next steps?
Right.
If you leave there with no idea, your few days of not hearing might feel like an eternity when they were never planning on getting back to you for 2 weeks anyway.
Well, and I hear like the spiral with our clients, like, oh, you know what? I think I did a really good job.
Yep.
And then it's like, you don't hear. And then it's like,
I think I messed up on this. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, how would you maybe answer this? Well, they didn't like me at all. And
I'm a loser.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like the rabbit hole, and you go down it.
So make sure you know. So let's say you do know, you know that you were going to hear within a week, and now it's been 2 weeks and you haven't heard.
Right.
So you should give a few grace period days before you reach out, but you should absolutely reach out a few days after you've been told you'd hear.
Yeah.
And take out the word, I'm just checking, or I hate to bother you, but, and just say, checking in. To see what the disposition of my candidacy is, or see what the next steps are, whatever you want to say, but keep it short and sweet and confident.
And taking command of it, right? You're taking command of getting those answers because you just used a lot of your time to go on this interview and you need an answer.
Exactly.
And you may still not get it.
I just actually was dealing with a client who happened to be my nephew last night with a similar thing happened. I said, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call them. First of all, they're not going to answer.
Right.
So you can have a really well-crafted message, and they're going to hear your voice and be reminded of how much they like you. But also, that's a real confident move, especially nowadays when nobody does that.
Yeah.
So whatever the case, whether you email or call, make sure that you do it promptly after you've missed that date, and do it confidently. If you don't hear from that response, then change your modality. So if you emailed, maybe you ping them on LinkedIn or call.
Right.
And again, firm, short and sweet, but no apology.
Right. Okay. What about a straight up rejection?
Yeah. So I think if they're bold enough to give you that rejection, not just blow you off, the most important thing is to try to keep that relationship open, because there may be other opportunities that come up. And this is particularly important if you've made it pretty far in the process.
Right.
If it's early on, then maybe it's not going to go your way. Maybe you're not a fit for the organization.
So give a real example of how you would script saying, okay, so I've said to you, Susan, you're just really not a fit for this position.
Right. Usually they won't say it. Usually you get an email. So I would, I typically want to respond the way they reply to me. So first pass, I would write back and say, thank you, Kelley, for telling me. It's great to know. Of course, I'm disappointed because I thought I was a very good fit. And I would love to get 10 minutes on the phone with you to understand where I fell short. Now, most of the times they're not going to take the phone call, but at least they'll email you and say X, Y, and Z. And sometimes they'll ghost you again. And then you follow the same rule, give them a little bit of time. Kelley, I know it's a lot to ask for some time. If you could just shoot me a quick email and let me know where I fell short. I respect your opinion and I'd like to know. 50-50 shot, they'll get back to you.
And here's the thing. The beauty is in that 50% chance that it does happen, you learn something valuable to take with you on your next interview. And as humans, we don't often want to hear, where did I screw that up? And you might want to just, tuck your tail between your legs and just, pretend like it didn't happen, but you can learn so much from these opportunities, and you want to take advantage of the 50% chance that it might happen.
I think also it's setting, you're establishing yourself as someone who's confident, who doesn't just take a no. It really is actually showing them a little bit more of you than they might have gleaned from the interview. So it can be a really positive thing. Right. And I think another thing, I should have said this earlier, another thing to ask is, I would love to be considered for other opportunities. Can we stay in touch? So Aurora, one of our students who graduated about a year or so ago, was in the process for an interview with Amazon. She really wanted to make a pivot from like accounting into, I think, financial data or FP&A or something like that. And she had a good interview. She made it all the way, didn't get the nod. She asked that question because she learned it in our course. And that recruiter kept the door open with her and she ended up getting another opportunity there.
Yeah. So great advice.
Works.
Great advice. Okay. How about just in this current climate?
Yes.
If there's a delay or a hiring freeze, because I know that is happening for many of the people that are out there.
We're seeing that a lot.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Just because there's a hiring freeze doesn't mean that the work goes away. So if you've made it all the way to the end, and let's just make a little parse this a little bit. And that is that if they're telling you in the first interview that that's a hiring freeze, you haven't established enough of a relationship for this particular strategy to work. So you just kind of just say, great, I'll be back in touch in 3 months to check and see if things have lifted. But if you're in the process and they've invited you in a couple of times.
And maybe you've actually done work for them, right? Because often
sometimes they'll have you do an assignment or do a mock interview or a mock presentation. If you're in that position where you've kind of advanced through the process, just to know that even though the job can't be filled, doesn't mean the work goes away. So a really great way to handle that is, you know what, Kelley, I totally get it. I'm hearing this everywhere, but I also know that you guys are pretty strapped and you need the help. And I want to just position myself as someone who would be happy to come in here and work on a project basis.
So contracting yourself.
Exactly. As a consultant, as a project worker, as a temporary worker, however we want to phrase it. Also pretty good to know that 99% of the time, the FTE, the full-time equivalent hiring budget is completely separate from the temp hiring budget. So I know this from my years on the recruiting side. We placed really bad economic downturn in 2001 after 9/11 and after all of the hiring that had been done for the turn of the millennial. There was really low hiring and a lot of hiring freezes. And so we placed so many people on contracts because the work was still there. So good little thing to tuck in your hat there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So what if the offer was given to you, but then it's rescinded? This is the last one. This is like such a heartbreaker. It's
so hard. And we have one student, I've had one private client that's happened to in the last couple of weeks. So same strategy. Now, if someone has offered you the job and they send you an email to say there's a hiring freeze, you pick up the phone. If they've offered you a job, they owe you an in-person conversation. In both of these cases, it happened. One, she had to call, the other, they called him. So you want to get on the phone with them and say, gosh, obviously I'm devastated. I mean, I was so excited to start here. Same strategy. Would love to just get in there, get acclimated, do some project work in anticipation of the hiring freeze lifting. And then you want to get some clarity around dates. Okay. So if they don't know off the top of their head what they're looking at, like in this case, it was Bank of America, and they said, we're looking at this lifting in Q1. And so what I advise that client to do is you're keeping in touch with that person every month, letting them know what you're doing, particularly if you're looking elsewhere, to let them know that, I'm just so I'm moving through the process with
other people.
Exactly. I'm moving through the process now. And I want to let you know, since my first choice is to accept the offer with you, but if that's not going to happen, I need to take this other offer. So you need to, I think it's a real mindset shift, to borrow your word or your phrase, because when you've been offered the job, you're a chosen candidate. You've got to act like you're already there. And just keep those lines of communication. Talk about, I'm looking forward to January 1. I'm looking forward to starting, and kind of keeping that kind of but that mindset shift is really important, because as far as I'm concerned, you're in. If they've made you the offer, but it can happen that the rescind can come.
And so that's the follow-up question I want to have to this is, so what if it is a hard no, like we are taking the offer back and there is no, like, you're coming in January 1. I mean, does that happen?
It won't happen if you're a good candidate, but in my private clients, I suspected there was something else going on there. And so when she had that conversation with them, which they were reluctant to give her, we practiced and she dug a little bit. And it turned out that they were uncomfortable with, she had really talked the salary up and they'd agreed to it. And then they had second thoughts. They had second thoughts about their ability to cover it and what it was going to do for, they kind of prematurely renegotiated.
It was going to set a precedent.
Exactly. So then she was able, we kind of practiced that. So she was able to make the choice of accepting the job at the lower price or not. And she didn't, because she really wanted more money. She got something else. So again, it's kind of like uncovering, it's asking questions and being okay, like you said
Yes.
earlier, with hearing the answers.
Yes. And not tucking your tail between your legs and just saying, oh God, it's not going my way. And I know that's hard. That's why we're going to do another follow-up video talking much more about the mindset of when you're dealing with the rejection through the interview process. So that's what we have for you today. If you liked what you hear, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that like button for this video today. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can find information on our website at www.preparetolaunchu.com.